Well, hello, everybody. I'm so glad that you're here with us today. My name is Aliza Bloom Robinson. You might know me by Rev. Aliza. I am a transformational catalyst, a best-selling author. The newest book is Paradox of Awakening, Finding Peace in a World of Chaos. I am a speaker, I am a coach, and I am a minister. And today it is my privilege and my honor to be interviewing my new friend from Sweden, who's going to tell us about her in a moment. So anyway, that's all I'm going to say about that, because I want you to introduce yourself, and then we're going to share our story of meeting, which I'm very excited to share with our audiences.
Thank you so much, Aliza. Oh, I love our interviews.
And I do too. We're so fun together, aren't we?
It's just flowing. So my name is Agnieszka Berben, and I am a psychotherapist and a relationship coach. And I basically work with women. So yes, and my method is like a 7-step system to attract the love of your life. And it's mostly for people who are looking for the love that lasts, who have had a lot of bad relationships and have gone through a lot of patterns and maybe have lost hope. So very often when women come to me, they're women who have had some horrible experiences, and they are still brokenhearted, and it's just so painful, and they're so full of fear to enter any relationship that they would like to get like new tools, new techniques, just knowledge what to do. Yeah.
And what to do so that they can find the one, find the love of their life. Is that
exactly? Yes. So my method is based on calling in the one. It's Catherine Woodward Thomas's method, and yes, it's a system. It's a 7-step system. It takes 8 weeks, and it's very clever, and it's actually something you had experience of as well. So we'll get to that as well. But it's a method which is very different, and it's a miraculous method. And as soon as I started to train to become a coach in this method, I would just meet people online who have done it and who would tell me, yes, it really works, Agnieszka. So, I'm quite active in the different video communities, and that's how we met, actually.
Yes.
I was actually talking in my video, in the video course we are both doing about, me learning this method and teaching people, passing it on to people, and you responded that you actually did it 2 years ago, and how it's changed your life. So yes, definitely we've got a lot of proof that the method works, and yeah, it really does.
Yeah, it's really powerful, and we did meet in that video community, and what's really fascinating, because your video about calling in the one was what caused me to say, hey, I did that, da 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 da, and that connected us. But this doesn't have anything to do with us. But about 2 weeks before that happened with another friend of mine. Like, she's like, I'm taking this course. I'm like, wait, I hadn't thought about it in years. And so I shared my story, and then yours popped up, and we've connected, and yeah, it's really, really wonderful. So yeah. So when women come to you, now you kind of said that in introducing, when they come to you, they're typically what? Frustrated, annoyed, hungry, ready. What are they experiencing, really, when they're coming to you for this work?
Yeah.
Or do you know they're coming for this work?
Yes, I think, when you come to see a therapist or a relationship coach, you've hit a certain level of hopelessness, helplessness, desperation, and disappointment. And just becomes so painful that you want someone's help to break through whatever has been happening. And I think the problem for a lot of people is that they have practically lost hope that that's true, wonderful, connected, loving relationship can happen. So very often women would say, oh, I've done everything I could have done. I've invested so much in him. I've loved him so much. That's a common scenario, one of the most common scenarios. I've invested so much. I've given up so much, my time, and, you know, I just gave so much and I've done so much, and it didn't work out. Right. So that's a very, very, very common scenario. Another common scenario is that women get attracted to a very similar type of a man. So, for example, and I think a lot of people will recognize or, you know, will agree with what I'm saying right now. Like, how do we deal with unavailable people? Since I'm working with women, mostly, they would say, I can't attract or be with men who are emotionally, especially emotionally available.
Yeah.
Yes.
I know for me, and we'll share more about my story in a few minutes, but I know I was done. I was like at my wit's end. You know, I'm a minister. I coach people. I counsel people. I tell everybody else how to have great relationships, but mine, I couldn't get the traction. So what you say, hopelessness, I'm like, and I was just like, I know enough to know I got some unconscious patterns going on here, and I'm like, I am done. So when I first heard about the Calling in the One, I'm like, it's time. I'm ready. So can you tell us a little bit about what makes it different? What makes it magical?
What makes it magical? I think more than one element, but you know, there is magic in it. That's one thing. But another thing is consciousness. So one element is that when we go through those patterns, those painful patterns, usually what we notice is that there is a very similar pattern. So we would pick a very similar type of a person and would go through a very similar pattern, painful pattern in a relationship. And that's for a reason. It doesn't just happen because there's no reason. That's for a reason. We repeat the same patterns. And the story is that basically it's our subconscious mind. We touched on the subconscious. So the amazing thing about the process is that we bring into consciousness what's not conscious. And we can do it without having to do psychoanalysis or any kind of, 30-session therapy. We do it through observation of our patterns. And another element is that if we've been through a lot of pain in relationships, we very often succumb to this, sad, dreadful story and the victimized sense of self. So our love consciousness is, it sort of revolves around beliefs such as unlovable, or love is impossible for me, or men are not available. And it's so deeply ingrained usually. Mm-hmm. That's one of the trickiest things. That's one of the trickiest things. And it all comes from our subconscious beliefs. Those those short kind of sentences, as we say in psychology, like, I'm unlovable, I'm not enough. And they usually come up in relationships and they are relived. They are very relived in relationships, in romantic relationships. So what we do in the process is that we don't go into long therapy to explore a relationship with our dad or mom. We briefly have a look at that because that was the template. And then we move on and we use a very, very powerful element, which is we look at our patterns and at our role in a relationship and how our role contributed to the outcome of a relationship. And I can already hear some people saying, what?
It's not me, it's him.
Him. But even if it is 3 or 5% of our responsibility, we look at that because we don't want to look at that, victimized sense of self. You don't want to be a victim because that's a very powerless position to be in. So the method actually empowers us by looking at what we can change in our patterns, in the way we have contributed to the outcome of the relationship. And that's the empowering part. So we very consciously do not look at, okay, he's done this, she's done that. No, that's not the right way forward. And
most of us have done that ad nauseum with no change anyway, right?
Exactly. And people get stuck in that for years. And I think the worst thing is also that if you had so many breakdowns, when the relationship has failed so many times, your heart is broken and you build a wall around it. And once you build a wall around it and then you repeat the stories of what didn't work, you're not open. You're not going to open up to love and new possibilities, which really are there. We get people getting married at the age of 60 and 70 who've used the process, and age is definitely not a restriction. We've got so many beliefs that restrict us because of fear or past experiences. So we don't deal with the past. We deal with what patterns we've kind of been through, and we're working on ourselves.
Yeah, and what's one of the places where you and I connected, not only within the context of this particular body of work, but in the power of becoming conscious of the unconscious, right? Because we know, and most people know these days, that 95% of our awareness is unconscious, and so that's such. But as soon as you become conscious, then power to do it different.
Yes, totally. And I myself, I'm a psychotherapist, but I have recently discovered certain things about the unconscious mind that from childhood that do play a role in our relationships. Do you want me to a little bit?
Yeah.
The audience a little bit of a secret. Not secret, but it's something that was not that obvious to me at all until 2-3 months ago, maybe. So what we do is, when you read a little bit of Harville Hendricks, who is the author of Imago Relationship Therapy and an author of many, many books, is that, imago is image in Latin. So when we our partners, we attract this kind of ideal partner who is the composite of both our parents, including both the positive and negative. And that's the template for the person we kind of draw in. And now imagine what happens if that template is not entirely positive, or if it's secure attachment. So for example, if my father was not emotionally present, was absent, kind of distant father, I'm very likely to attract this kind of man. And we've got psychology to kind of support it, why it happens.
Right.
So what happens later on in life is that we subconsciously try to draw in that composite, that template unknowingly. And what happens is that if one of our parents, that's our template, one of our parents was emotionally, or both were emotionally unavailable, and we've created certain beliefs about love, like I need to work hard for love, I need to do something to earn love, enough, invisible, we will actually attract that partner who will be unavailable. The attraction to that partner, that pull will be super strong. And how do we know when it happens? We know it when there are stars, and you fall in love and you are super excited, And that's usually how it happens. That's how we can recognize this is not a healthy attraction.
Yes.
And women would say, oh, I don't want to date this guy. It's boring. He doesn't turn me on, whatever. And they get attracted to certain types where they feel that, high, that rush. And now we know there is a psychological explanation for that, but it doesn't mean that it's healthy. Basically want to do that to kind of tackle the unfinished business of childhood. So we want to win over those childhood wounds when we felt abandoned, when we felt that love was not given to us. But we can't win that battle with someone who is not available.
Right.
And that's how these relationships happen.
And that's the power of this work that you're teaching now, is that healing of the subconscious that doesn't take years of therapy, right? Yeah. A lot of us have done that too, and that's important sometimes, but this level of healing, very similar to the work that I do. Yes. But I also say there's the psychology of it, but what's really awesome right now is there's also the brain science of it, right? Because the is also the addiction.
Yes.
It's the addiction to the chemical, yes, in our brain science and in our bodies. So there's so much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's the rush of dopamine and serotonin, and we get addicted to that. So there are different forces at play, really. There's this addiction, and we associate this with love. That's kind of, that rush, which is not, because real love grows slowly, and we should give people a chance, get to know them, see them a few times, to get to know the character, to get
right.
to know the character.
So the real person, not just the stuff and the chemicals and the lust and the passion and the.
And so often I don't feel it with, of course there has to be attraction as well. I'm not saying that, but attraction has to be there, but it's not about that rush and that high, and like that's the only thing that some people go for.
Yeah, it's and I know from personal experience how powerful this work is.
Aliza, tell us a little bit about that. Because
so it's been many years ago, and I don't share this story publicly that often, so it's interesting that it's coming up. But I had met this guy in I'm going to put some dates on it just for reference, but in 2006, and I was like, bam, over the moon, and it was like there was that going on, and it was this deep inner knowing. I said to somebody who reminded me recently, said, remember the first time you saw that guy, you said, that's interesting to me, right? Now usually we think of the men doing that, but the truth is we as women do it often. So we came together and had this relationship, and then we broke up, and then we came together and we had this relationship, and then we broke up. There was a lot of reasons that we broke up, and then we came together. Third time. I called it the bungee cord relationship. It was like, boom, stretch, fall apart. Boom, stretch, fall apart. 3 times. It's like, you've got to be kidding me. And then it was like, okay, no, we're done. We're done. We can't figure this out. It's all over. And it was in that time when I was doing a deep spiritual initiation work for myself. I'd sort of stepped away from everything for a while, and I found Catherine Woodward Thomas and her work. And her story is amazing. And she was teaching it on a teleconference. So I got her personally, with 100 or 500 other women on the call, right? But got coached by her. And I went through the 7 steps, went through the 8 weeks, did live work, did the book, it's a daily exercise for 90 days, right? If you do the book. And I wrote everything out. This is what I want. This is what I want it by. And the whole thing, I wish I could find that card again, because it was amazing. So in that card, it was like, by December 31st, 2011, I will have met the man of my dreams, and then however the format is, right, that you will teach your clients. And I had not you know, our last breakup, boom, was in July. So
Yeah.
I hadn't thought, no, that's not true. I thought about him all the time, but I hadn't talked to him. I hadn't nothing. And I'm like, I'm focusing on finding the right one because this bungee cord thing, it doesn't work. All of our family was like, this obviously doesn't work. What do you mean you broke up again? What do you mean you like him again? What do you know, all that stuff, right?
You kind of gave up on him. Like
I let it go. I
Okay.
totally gave up on him. And Christmas that year, he sent me something. I hadn't talked to him now in, 5-6 months at all, nothing, zero contact. And I got this gift in the mail. I thought, well, that's weird. And I thought, but I didn't do anything about it. I think I called and said thanks and left a message or whatever. And on December 30th, he called me on the phone, and I had moved across the country by then. All this stuff. He called me on the phone and he said, I have been thinking about us, and I just absolutely know we need to be together.
Wow.
This is my first reaction, right? I don't think I ever told him this, so I hope he doesn't watch this video. My first reaction is, no, I'm done with you. I'm calling in the one.
Yeah.
And then he immediately went, wait a minute.
What did I write on that piece?
What did I write down? And I read it, and I was, terrified at that point because we'd done this 3 and maybe even 4 times by now. And he's like, let me come see you. Let me come across country. And I'm like, oh God, no, wait, stop. I have to process this. And so he came like not that day, but like 3 days later or something. I mean, very quick. We talked at a different level. And we landed at this whole different place. That was then in January 2012. In June, we got married. And now it's 6 years later and 12 years. We'd been together on and off for 6 years before we got married. And now we've been married 6. And is it wonderful and absolutely perfect? Yes. Is it always smooth? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Always places for growth and to come back together. Absolutely.
But what has changed, it's as if suddenly something clicked. What was that, element?
Well, through the course that you're teaching your clients, that inner healing work, right? I dismantled so many of those patterns. I healed the subconscious wounds. I dismantled that barrier around my heart. Now, the other work I was doing in my life was all about opening my heart. It had nothing to do with the relationship. So all of that was coming together for me.
Yeah.
And then when he showed up again, my heart was open, and he's also a very spiritual person, obviously been doing his own level of work. So we came together brand new.
Yes.
We were able at that point to start brand new. Now when old stuff came up, we could look at it and go, is that current or is that old? Right? Because so often the old is really just a trigger of a subconscious that very seldom has his action is the trigger, right? Not the cause. It's the trigger of the old part. And at that point, and for us, it was the decision to actually get married. Now, we had been engaged at least once, maybe twice before. Big, beautiful ring, since 2008. It had gone back and forth between us, even in the mail and back and forth several times. Actually, but he brought that with him in January. But our decision for us, because we were both runners. Both I don't know that he was a runner. He was he would go into his emotional cave. Would stay in relationship, and his last relationship he stayed in like a decade too long. And I'm out of here. I'm the runner.
Yes.
Right? And then in that commitment to say, no, we're doing this, all of the work in calling in the one, and all of the work is like, let's get married. Let's be married. Let's make this work. And our commitment is life. Our commitment is not until it doesn't work, because we've done that before. Our commitment is life.
Yeah.
Life may or may not happen, but that container for us really worked. And it's held us. Now, especially those first couple of years, there were times where if we hadn't been married, I was so gone. I was so done. But yet, with what I'd learned,
yes,
I'd healed, and with that commitment, it's like we were able to move through some of those things.
Yes, and it looks like you were both on the same pages, and you both wanted it to work, and you've done the internal work as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
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 Amazing. I love your story so much.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fun to share about because, you know, it was so profound at the time and so surprising. I mean, I was so clear it's going to be him.
Yeah. Totally.
And Catherine talks about that too in her book, her story.
Her
you know,
story,
to give marriage. She's like, no, it wouldn't be him. It's like, oh, well, wait a minute, maybe it is.
And actually, she did a similar thing where she put a date, you know, by which she wanted to be engaged, I think, or married, and it actually did happen. Like, it has happened for many people. Even when I was signing up for my training, I've seen at least a couple of people who have done it, and they said, yes, it's worked for us as well.
Yeah.
So yeah. It's pretty miraculous.
Yeah. So anyway, all of this really is to say this is the work that you're doing. This is relatively new, a new adding, but this is going to be such an important piece for people. And I see people who are going to be like, I'm ready. I want to do this. How can they contact you?
Yeah, the best way is actually there'll be a link below the video if people just click on the link. So depending on when the video is and which platform, I don't know, it'll probably on a few platforms, but the link is the best thing to do, just to click on there.
Yes.
You'll find me.
Yes. So what else would you like to just give our listeners as just sort of a closing comment? What else would you like them to know?
Okay, never ever give up hope. Never. It is really totally possible, and there are so many tools to make it happen. There are really so many tools. We don't have the time for it right now, but there are so many tools, and I'm happy to share them with people that help the whole process. So that would be my closing comment.
Love is possible.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I thank you so much for being here with me today, and I wish you all the best. And I can't wait to continue our relationship. We've talked about even playing together and combining some of our work. So for all of our listeners, stay tuned for that. And
it's going to be exciting. So
yes, absolutely.
Another interview.
All right.
Thank you,
So
Aliza.
much love, and I'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.